These are the notes for circles and angles that you discussed in section 6.4. So for these notes, they're basically some definitions, and then I'm going to add some explanation to go with the definitions. So the definition of circle is the set of all points in a plane that are equidistant, meaning the same distance from a fixed point called the center. So right here we have a circle, and the circle is always named by its center. So A is the center. We then have this whole idea of equidistant. So all of the points that are equidistant from A are along the edge of this circle, or on the circle. And we give a special name for this distance. We call this the radius. So the radius of this circle A is AB. Our second definition is ray. Ray is a part of a line with one endpoint, and one arrow. Rays are named by two letters, and the symbol for that notation would be the two letters plus a little ray on the top, so an arrow pointing in one direction. And we always name a ray from its end point to the arrow, so end point to the arrow. Our third definition in this section has to do with angle. So the definition is an angle is the union of two rays that share a common endpoint. So in this angle, we name this angle, so we call it angle ANB. And this angle is made up of two rays. Ray NA and NB. Our last definition for this section is angle of rotation. Now, angle of rotation is an angle that's formed when a ray is rotated about its endpoint. We often talk about an angle of rotation refers to the number of degrees a figure has been rotated around a fixed point with either counterclockwise or clockwise notation, but in math we have agreed that the counterclockwise rotation is considered the positive direction. So in our picture here, you could almost imagine that our original ray is right here, and that then we rotate it about that point to there, where we now have the new ray. The other way to think about this is to think about this whole idea of the degrees in which a figure has been rotated. So we could talk about this angle having some degree measure. So we could also say that this angle of rotation is 120 degrees. Lastly, we want to note that when we talk about it having a degree measure, that when we go in our counterclockwise, that's the opposite way that the clock goes, we consider that a positive rotation. So we could have talked about the rotation that started with this ray and went this way, in which case we would need to say that that has a negative 240 degree rotation. So as long as you signify whether or not you're positive or negative, that takes care of telling the direction. So positive, counterclockwise, negative, clockwise.